What's up, viewers? As many of you know, a couple days ago I went and watched the movie Deadpool, which I was super excited about, and I thought it was going to be a great film, and it was. It was a fantastically made movie, but it didn't quite deliver on some of the things that I wanted it to, so I wanted to sit down and make this really quick review. I know I'm like a month and a half late, like a month and a half after the release date of the film, so this is probably completely irrelevant to most people, but if you were considering maybe going for a late, movie-going experience with Deadpool, or if you were considering maybe buying it on DVD when that came out and you were curious as to whether or not it's a good movie, here's my brief take on what I thought the movie was. So just a really quick overview, if you guys don't want to watch this whole review. I thought the movie did a great job. Everybody involved in the film was really passionate about the movie. Clearly, it was very creative. It was very, it had a lot of heart. It had a lot of thought put into it. They definitely sat down and cranked out a really, really excellent film. It was a great fan service. They didn't, it didn't seem like it was created by people who were creating it for the money, like a big Hollywood kind of deal. It very much felt like the people who created the project were very passionate about the project and about delivering this project to the fans, so it was a fantastic fan service. And in general, it was just a good time. You know, you sit down, you watch this, and if you're, old enough to watch and enjoy rated R movies, it was just absolutely hilarious. It was hilarious, it was action-packed, it was constantly moving, there wasn't a single point at which you were exhausted. So overall, great film, very well done, and I think if I had gone into it with a more correct mindset, which I'll talk about more at the end of this film, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But essentially, if you go into this expecting a very intense, graphic comedy film with a bunch of pop references like flying at you at 50 miles an hour, with you only being able to catch half of them because like it's just way too much, like it's a lot, it's just a huge overload of information and jokes and all this stuff. So if you're ready for a rapid fire kind of comedy film with a bunch of other stuff sprinkled into it, this is the perfect film for you. Okay, let me give you a quick background on my Deadpool knowledge. I have no idea who Deadpool is from the comics. I have no experience with him. My only experience with Deadpool, when I was introduced to the character, was 3 years ago when the video game Deadpool came out, and I was watching some Let's Players here on YouTube playing the game, and I was just astounded.
Oh, a sewer. How quaint. Does anybody remember how to play?
I was blown away. The entire idea of fourth wall breaks, which is the entire thing of Deadpool, is that he knows that he's in a movie, or in my video game experience, he knows that he was in a video game, was just incredible. Because in many tutorials in like basic games, you have these people, they're like, to kick the ball, press A, and it's obviously just like, it's stupid, right? It just takes you out of the game. You realize you're playing a game, like it's stupid. Whereas in the Deadpool game, it was like done deliberately.
Do whatever High Moon says. Sweet! Jump button!
It was done deliberately, and Deadpool looks at you as the player, and he's like, press A, and you'll see me jump. Press X, and you'll see me do these crazy moves.
Light attacks? Check. Heavy attacks? Got it.
And he knows that like you're in control of him, and he knows he's got all these special moves, and he knows that like he can do all this stuff, and that was just an incredible experience for me. Just like watching people play that game. Not only was it my favorite style of video game, which is this intense, stylistic hack and slash, crazy action-packed game, but it also had this element where he knew he was in a video game and he was talking to you, and like the interaction, the scripting, the dialogue, it was all very cleverly done. I could really appreciate the merging of the intense, beautiful action with the quirky, funny quips. Okay, and that's exactly what I expected going into this movie. And unfortunately, the movie didn't quite deliver on that. But before we get into that, let me just give you a quick overview of what the movie actually is. So it tries to kind of construct this thing of like 4 different genres. It goes into a romance, it's like a love story, and it even talks about all this throughout the movie. It's like, oh, this is a love story. It tries to be a horror film at some point. It's a very scary, dark kind of origin story of Deadpool, like how he got so messed up and like how he became who he is, like how this character developed. It's an action film, like I said, with a bunch of hack and slash, a bunch of shooting and guns and blood and gore everywhere, and then also it's a comedy movie. The entire thing is wrapped in this comedic, hilarious, like I said, pop reference, tossing around sort of envelope. It's all wrapped up in this little gift wrap of comedy that delivers every single one of these things, the romance, the action, and the horror component, as like a punchline to some overarching joke that it keeps hitting you over and over with from a bunch of different sides, which is what makes this movie so much fun. The plot of the film is extremely simplistic. You probably draw out the entire plot in 6 different storyboards. Thing A happens, then thing B happens, then some transformation of Deadpool and how he becomes Deadpool happens, then he's really pissed about the transformation and, you know, how it transpired. Obviously, there are people involved who made this transformation happen, and so then he goes after those people, and then there's the ending sequence where he fights those people. That's kind of my spoiler-free breakdown of the very simplistic basic plot, but the way it is delivered in the film is a very contrived and twisted, like, narrative thing, where, like, you start from, you know, 3/4 of the way into the movie, then you shoot back to the beginning of the movie, then you shoot back to like the middle, and then you shoot back over here, and you're constantly moving around. So they essentially take this plot, they slice it up into a bunch of different pieces, they rearrange them, they put them all together, and you've got this movie. And the entire time it's being told by Deadpool, because he knows he's in a film, he's breaking the fourth wall entirely, and so he knows that you're being thrown back and forth, and he's narrating over it, and he's narrating over it in the scenes, he's narrating over it in transitions from the scenes. It's really cool. It's like I said, it's a really creative, very well thought out movie. But if you deconstruct, if you take away all the slicing and dicing and rearranging and the nice little, you know, discussion over that, and you put it together as a single plot line, it's extremely simplistic. So that is a really, really cool approach, because for people who have no idea what Deadpool is, who are not ready for these fourth wall breaks, who are not ready for this like barrage of information and ideas that are being thrown at you in this movie, they can still follow pretty much what's going on, because it's, like I said, it's simple. Like, it doesn't take much to really understand what the story is. It's not something convoluted, not something like, you know, Inception or whatever, which has a bunch of different layers and you have to understand where they're at or whatever. It's very simple. Like, the only thing you really need to be thinking about is what timeline you're in, and, you know, whether or not he's wearing the costume pretty much tells you which timeline you're in. So the simplistic aspect of the movie helps draw in new people who are unaware of the whole Deadpool thing, whereas the convolution and the splitting it up and all that stuff, like I said before, is a fan service. It's for people who know what they're getting into, for them not to be bored with a very simple plot line. It gets like rearranged, twisted, and flipped upside down and kind of told in this non-linear way, which is really funny, really interesting, and really engaging, even despite the overall plot being so simplistic. Okay, now let's talk about all these 4 different pieces that I talked about: the romance, the horror, the action, and the comedy. So the romance, for me, was actually a big shock. This is not something that was in the video game, this is not something that I knew about the Deadpool character, but the romance actually ended up being the backbone of the film, in my opinion. The backbone of the Deadpool character. It was very definitive for this guy, his romance, his love. It like drove a big portion of the plot, which was a huge surprise to me, but it was also done so well that I was actually like, oh, okay, this works. Like, even in this R-rated action movie where everybody's getting killed and gutted, this love story actually works really, really, really well. Now, I was talking to somebody and they pointed out that this love story is kind of like this perfect fantasy, like, for every guy love story where, like, you know, his girlfriend is like the cool girl, you know, and then she's like funny and witty and understands his jokes, and at some point in the movie he even says, like, did I build you on a computer or something? It's just, she's just like perfect. But that doesn't really detract from the romance itself. It's unrealistic, it doesn't make any sense, it probably would never actually happen or work out with this kind of situation, but it's still really cool, especially in the way that it affects him. Like, he clearly cares about this romance, and that's about the only thing he cares about in this movie, and so it grounds him as a character, which is really cool. It's something that is missing from the action piece, which I'll get to later. The horror piece kind of didn't really sit very well with me. In my opinion, there are at least 2 kinds of comedy. There are a bunch of different kinds of comedy, obviously, but there's just generic, plain, funny, you know, kid-friendly comedy, and then there's dark comedy, you know, comedy that makes fun of death, comedy that makes fun of disease, and, you know, really just dark comedy. And I think what Deadpool tried to do is take this really messed up origin story for this guy and make it into a dark comedy, like make it funny but also dark. And you can't really escape the horrors of Deadpool's origins, okay? You have to show the horrific, like I said, as a good fan service to this character, you have to show his horrific beginnings. But as a film that tries to deliver everything wrapped up in comedy, it also tried to make that funny, and that didn't really work out so well for me. It was a little bit too... Some of the scenes were definitely very hard to watch, and I didn't really believe the comedy. Like, this guy is being put through a lot, and him still being able to joke is a little bit, I mean, it's admirable, yeah, cool, like, he has this great perspective on life, but at some point, it's just like, it's a little bit, even a little bit fake. Like, I don't see anybody possibly being able to handle this much of, like, psychological, physical, whatever torture, whatever he goes through, and also maintain this, like, happy, jolly thing.
Why would anybody want to see that? I sure as hell don't. Why did they think I wear a goddamn mask?
Hope this game doesn't, like, try to do the whole tragedy behind the comedy thing.
Here we go.
It's still fine. It's fine. It is the character. I guess that's what the Deadpool character is, and I didn't realize this because I didn't know what Deadpool's origin was. The game kind of throws you right into kind of the middle of Deadpool. But with me, personally, it didn't sit right. So the movie had really no choice other than to do this, but it didn't really play well with me. Okay, and now we get to the most interesting part, which is the action. And this was my biggest gripe with the film. Like I told you guys, when I watched people playing the video game, I was impressed, very impressed by the stylistic hack and slash nature of the game. I loved the Deadpool character because he was a really, really cool, really badass mercenary with great moves, with all these different abilities, and I'm a sucker for that. You know, I like the Devil May Cry series. I like the really stylistic, unrealistic sword swishing and gun battles and all this crazy stuff that's really well done, and you really root for the character, and it's awesome. But what makes a great action story isn't always crazy moves or crazy abilities, which I had plenty of in this movie. A lot of what makes a good action sequence is you being actually invested in what's going on, you being invested in the person you're rooting for, winning whatever, you know, confrontation is going on, and you being genuinely scared or nervous that something might happen. Somebody at some point is in danger, or not even in danger of death, but even in danger of pain, right? You watch any other superhero movies and you can, you know, say for example, Captain America. I just recently watched Captain America the Winter Soldier for the first time, and I was blown away by the action in that film. Because you've got Captain America, right, who's probably not gonna die, right? It's his film, it's a comic book movie, Captain America's not gonna die, and you know that. But when Captain America takes a beating, you can feel it. Every single time he gets punched in the face with, you know, the metal arm of the villain in that movie, you can feel it in your own face. Like you hear his bones cracking, you see his eyes swelling up. You're like, oh my goodness, this dude is going through a lot of pain, and you're on the edge of your seat. You're like, please get out of this situation. You're hoping against hope that Captain America figures something out, and that's how the action unwinds. And then there's this big battle and whatever, and Captain America wins in the end. Whatever, doesn't really matter. It's intense. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, even though you know that probably the protagonist is going to win. The protagonist still feels a lot of pain, and it's hard. It's hard to watch, but it's amazing, right? It's you get to root for this character. You're sitting there. You're gnawing your nails. The problem with Deadpool was that this just wasn't there. You know what I mean? It was partially because of the comedic aspect of the film, where it made every single action piece kind of a joke, especially with the fourth wall breaks. Like, this dude knows he's in an action sequence. He knows he's gonna win. He knows exactly what he's gonna do. He's talking to the audience. It's great. It's funny, but it completely takes you out of the action. You are completely no longer invested in the actual battle. You're not thinking about, oh geez, how is he gonna get out of this situation? How is he gonna beat this? How is he gonna battle this? Like blah, 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 blah. There were some really cool scenes, but overall, there's no tension to the action. Here's another gripe I had. Deadpool's superpower, and this isn't really a spoiler, this is just like a part of Deadpool's character. Deadpool's superpower is that he has super healing abilities. So he gets shot through the arm, right, and the arm will grow, that hole will grow back. You know, he loses a leg, that leg will grow back. Deadpool is essentially indestructible. That is a part of his character. However, what he doesn't have is pain resistance abilities. Again, this isn't very much of a spoiler, but the villain in this film is completely impervious to pain. He can take a beating and he doesn't feel anything. That's like his superpower. His nerve endings got burned or something, I don't know. Anyway, Deadpool doesn't have this. So, yes, I understand. When he gets shot with when he gets riddled with bullets, okay, those bullets are gonna pop out and his body's gonna grow back. When he loses a leg, that leg is gonna grow back. But he should also feel the pain of those things hitting him. He should also, you know, be incapacitated when these things happen to him, not just, you know, get up, shake it off, and keep going. And again, this might be a part of the character, so it's fine on the movie's part if they did this because they tried to be true to the character. Maybe the character is just, I don't know how he can humanly possibly take the amount of pain and beating that he takes in this movie without the superpower of having full pain resistance. But it again, takes you completely out of the action. You really don't care. Deadpool can get socked in the face with huge metal arms. He can break all of his limbs. He can get like a knife shoved in his leg. It honestly doesn't matter. You don't feel the pain because he doesn't feel the pain. You don't feel any danger because he doesn't feel any danger. This dude is indestructible. He's impervious to pain. He really doesn't care, and he jokes about it the whole way through, and he knows he's in a film. It just takes you out of every single action scene. Even if the action scene is super badass and super cool, and bullets are flying, and, you know, katanas are swinging, and people are, you know, losing their heads or whatever, it's cool, it looks great, it looks stylistic, but it takes you completely out of the action. So as an action movie, in my opinion, this film fails. If you show up to this film like any other Marvel film, like I said, Captain America, and you're ready to see some sick fights, you're ready to see some, you know, beatings where you're going to be on the edge of your seat, you know, oh my god, come on, Deadpool, you can do this, you can do this. You're just, it's not here. It doesn't exist in this movie. That kind of tension, that kind of excitement, it's not there, okay? Another thing is, because this film was so low budget, some of the action sequences were extremely CGI. They were so fake. It was pretty much like watching like a kid's cartoon, okay? You know what's gonna happen. You know Deadpool's gonna win. You have absolutely no care about anybody in the battle. Like, you know who's gonna die and you know who's gonna survive. I was actually hoping at some point in the movie, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I was hoping that somebody would die, like a specific character would die, so that you would at least feel like, oh my goodness, there actually was a consequence to this, like, wow. And maybe it would have, you know, served to progress his character, maybe he would have become a little bit more serious. I don't know, this is just things that I would have liked to see. Again, if this is not a part of Deadpool's character, then that's, you know, great on the people who made this movie. They stayed really loyal to the character at the expense of losing out a lot of the tension that they could have had in the action sequences. Small good things, the costumes were incredible. Deadpool's costume was just on point. Colossus looked great. Pretty much all of the set pieces, all of the costumes, a lot of them were really simplistic, but the stuff that wasn't supposed to be simplistic, mostly Deadpool's costume, they just nailed it. They completely nailed it. I was very happy with that. The movie looked great, except for those parts where it was extremely CGI, but they kind of called themselves out on it, and I know they had a pretty low budget, so it's all understandable. Okay, ultimately, as a sick, fun, kind of deranged, R-rated comedy movie, this film really works. Like I said, it takes all these different genres, it wraps it up in this package of comedy. It delivers it to you from a bunch of different angles. It makes a bunch of really funny, really cool, fourth wall breaking jokes, a bunch of different pop references. I definitely caught probably only half of those. You need to rewatch about 5 times to actually pick up on everything. The writing was on point. The acting was on point. The kind of story, like I said, simplistic but convoluted, which is great for all kinds of viewers. Team was creative. Team was passionate. The only thing is, I went into this movie expecting really, really cool action, really intense, amazing mercenary, sword swinging stuff, and they delivered on the actual visuals, but they didn't deliver on, the sensation of what a good action movie should give to you. So if you go into this with the idea of seeing a very intense, crazy, mind-blowing comedy thing, you are going to laugh yourself silly and you're going to enjoy the hell out of this. If you go into this as an action movie, like a regular Marvel superhero movie, you might be disappointed like I was. So it's not the perfect movie that I thought it was. I thought it was going to have just a combination of all this stuff and be just an absolute perfection, kind of like what I thought the video game was. But it's definitely missing on a couple of these things, especially the action component, which is what I was hoping for most from this film. So, movie delivered on pretty much all counts, which is why it's had such great reviews and has done so well at the box office. But for me personally, it definitely fell flat on some of these things, mostly on the action, a little bit on the, unrealism of some of the parts, and on the horror component, like I said, that didn't really sit well with me when they tried to mix it in with the comedy. So the action and the horror stuff wasn't so great. The romance and the comedy, pretty much on point. So that's it for me. This has been a very long review. If you've seen Deadpool, let me know in the comments if you agree with this review, what you thought about it yourself or whatever. If you haven't seen Deadpool, let me know if you're more or less interested now after seeing this review. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.